Okay, so Akshay, thank you so much for agreeing to be on Life Hacks.
My pleasure, Mr. Faria. Thank you for having, and thanks to everyone who's watching this video. I really hope those of you who are watching will have something to take away from it. And it is my absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Fabulous. So, Akshay, just to give all our viewers a background of this, Life Hacks is my way of getting through to people who are successful like you. And particularly, Life Hacks is different from another program of mine called Mind Talks, where we get into the minds of people who reached a certain level and they want to share with the world their success secrets.
Mm-hmm.
Here, the differentiator is Life Hacks is more about getting other people to understand that everything is possible when you put your mind to it. And the mind is a habit creating machine. And how do we break those habits that keep us stuck somewhere, or how do we break those habits that keep us, rooted to a place when we want to break free?
Okay,
so that's the purpose.
Super.
So, Akshay, I've known you from the time you're a kid. You're Craig's classmate, and I've known you as a lawyer. I've known you as a teacher, professor. But more than anything else, I've known you as a very good and close, trusted friend, especially for Craig. So, and we've had, our own interactions through coaching. So I know you in many ways, and I have the highest respect and regard for you. I just want you to tell us who's the Akshay that is there on the inside that you know best.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Faria, for that suspiciously generous introduction. It is fair to say that, Craig has been one of my oldest friends since we were kids, and, he still is. And you and your entire family are like my own family. And you especially have been a pillar of strength to me. You've known what I've gone through in recent times. And like you said, you've known me as a lawyer, as a teacher, whatever else. So just a little bit about myself. I went through, I grew up in a privileged home, as in what most people would call privileged today. I had no difficulties. I was given a great education. It's the same place Craig and you and my father and everybody else went to, St. Joseph's. I was lucky enough to get into National Law School, where I got my undergrad degree. And I also then got my graduate degree from the University of California at Berkeley, pursuing international law. Over the years, until the end of 2017, I was in pursuit of academia. And I've taught everything in colleges, like all across the country. I'm happy to say, from civil procedure to international law to legal research and writing. But what has appealed to me most, the reason I got into academia at all, was the rewarding sense that I would get after each class. Just in the interest of full disclosure, not to seem braggadocious, but I was the first person on my class in my batch to be offered a job. It was a 6-figure salary as a 22-year-old, 6-figure a month, I mean, not a year. So, and I did not want to pursue that because I saw myself that's why I joined UC Berkeley, which is a public institution which doesn't give scholarships, and whose main intention is to produce people who want to give back to society. And from the first day that I started teaching, I knew I'd made the right call, because the sense of reward that I would get from knowing that I'd made even the tiniest bit of difference to students' lives, the way they would express their appreciation to me, it's beyond any amount of money, and it's beyond any compare. Now, the only thing that differentiates me, I suppose, from a lot of people in similar situations is that during the course of my life, I faced a bit of difficulties, as you are well aware of. Since the age of my parents split when I was 16, and after that, I was an alcoholic for about 10 years, from when I was 20 years old till I was 30, actually. I spent my 28th birthday in Nimans. I woke up at 28th birthday in Nimans. I've been to rehab about 5 times. None of it worked. And the saddest part of all, at least in retrospect, not so sad, but at the time, most crushing of all, was the number of opportunities that I had to let go because of this. I said earlier that I was a graduate student at Berkeley, and doing my international law. After that, I started teaching at a university in Bangalore, when I was handpicked by a professor of international humanitarian law from the University of Queensland, and I was granted two scholarships, one on top of the other, which are extremely rare, to do my doctoral studies in international humanitarian law. And I pursued it, and I failed. I crashed and burned, worse than anything you can ever imagine, because I was an alcoholic.
Right.
And subsequently, I also lost, like the last job I lost was in 2017, when I had finally been picked up by Jindal, which is and still India's finest and most lucrative institution to teach at, and where I've experienced so much happiness. In fact, the day I was leaving, there were about 30, 40 students at my doorstep asking me not to leave. But alcohol, I'd succumbed to my addiction because I hadn't faced up to the issues. And I lost what I thought was, the biggest motivator in my life. And I didn't see any future for myself. So then I had to return to Bangalore. I did, in shame. Mind you, each time when I came back from Australia, when I came back from Jindal, many times before that in the past, I've had to resign. And I say this with no amount of shame or anything, because I admit to all my faults. But I am proud to say that I have made amends to everyone across 4 continents that I can think of, barring 2 people who have been unwilling to accept them. So despite repeated efforts, I have decided that it's best, some things are best left not pushed too far. And the main reason, I was so honored that you'd have me on here. I'm just 33, but I was so honored that you asked me to speak, because you thought I was worthy enough to give life hacks, or to be able to tell people about my story, which is something I've really wanted to do for a long time. And I was doing it in a private capacity, but as a friend to others and as much as I could, but I never really felt I was giving enough. And so that's why I'm here. And in short, that is who I am. And I can't claim to be a saint by any stretch of the imagination. I was an academic phenomenon in school. I won all the medals, I won everything. But then, because I didn't have the character to see me through it, or didn't have the knowledge and experience to guide me, I floundered. And the main message is this: that it can happen to anyone. Just because you're a genius who has the best grades, it doesn't make you immune from disaster. Disaster can strike anyone at any time in any way. And it's about how you can recover from that and then move on with equanimity. That counts for a lot. That is my main message, at least to begin with.
Wow. You speak so well, Akshay. So I wasn't even looking at, interrupting you in any way. Okay, so now, Akshay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
The question is this. How did you break free of those bonds? I mean, having any addiction, any attachment, let's call it that, because we're looking at the bigger picture of how to break free, how to transcend. Can you give us some ideas, some hacks that you picked up along the way, and how could others use it?
Absolutely. I can tell you what I did. It might not work for everyone, but I can certainly tell you, I can certainly share my own experiences in the hope that they will. Now, everybody my family, my friend, my family, relatives, everyone believed that, they'd force their own methods upon me. And whether it was by sending me to rehab, or forcing me to live in a certain way, or go to these AA meetings, all of these things were tried, but they never worked. And simply because I was not willing to let them work, because I was fighting against my family on that point, and B, because I wasn't being true to myself. I knew that if I went to AA and submitted they say you have to surrender yourself to a higher power. I'm a very, very ardent atheist, an anti-theist, you might, Dr. Christopher Hitchens. And to surrender myself to a higher power would be to absolve myself of any responsibility and accountability I had for things that I had done. And I am unwilling to do that under any circumstances. And that was the basic building block from where I started. I first had to take a good, hard look into myself. What was I fighting? Why was I fighting? And the answer to me came then I wasn't fighting my addiction as much as I was fighting my own ego.
Wow.
So when I realized that, when I came back from Jindal in 2017, I was steeped in so much disgrace. Like everyone knew me, and everyone knew me that I was suffering from this problem, but everyone also knew that I was a smart guy. And to be looked at with pity or scorn uh, was to me the ultimate insult. I couldn't show my face, or I didn't like to show my face. I wasn't proud of the person I saw in the mirror. Uh, and I didn't know what to do, but I figured, as Winston Churchill says, when you're going through hell, the best idea is to keep going. So I just put my head down and took it one step at a time. I said, if credibility must come, it will. And if it must come, it has to come through my actions, because I am not going to make sobriety my only focus, because I found that a lot of time when you concentrate only on sobriety and that becomes your ultimate goal, then the rest of your life is left meaningless. And for me, pardon me, but I'm far too ambitious, or I have too many interests to let it be meaningless. I have severe ADHD, so I'm like a magpie. And one thing that I wish to tell you, Mr. Faria, that really, really helped me is that I'm a big fan of Muhammad Ali and
Right.
Che Guevara. And right above my table here, you can't see it, but are all pictures of Ali. And every time I would look at him, and I would say that here's a man who stood through the hardest of times, standing true to his moral convictions and principles. And then, even if it meant giving up his prime years of fighting, or who knows what he could have accomplished in those years, Che Guevara gave his life fighting, for others. And I realized these people had transcended themselves for the help to benefit humanity. And my moment of clarity came, I used to look, whenever I would have a moment of doubt, I would look to these guys and say, if they were in your situation, what would they do? Would they succumb to something so small? And it gave me this time during some of my darkest hours to say, I'm not going to get angry or respond now. I'm not going to do anything out of haste. Let me just endure, hold on, because that shows strength, not weakness.
Right.
And many a time, I I hate to say this, but I have to be in the interest of truth. I must say that I was taunted cruelly because I also have epilepsy, as you know, which came up when I was around 20 and when my alcoholism started. So I used to start having seizures as well, independent and in addition to my withdrawals and seizures from alcohol. And certain people in my family chose to make fun of this. And I never liked it, but I went along with it because I didn't think, there was too much in it, but it caused me hurt. But then I learned that, one has to look into this darkness. I had to first go into myself and accept that, man, I've made a hell of a lot of mistakes. It's time to man up. Credibility, if it has to come, it will come. And in March 2018, at another one of our classmates' weddings in Goa, it was South Goa. I remember it, March 2nd to March 5th. I had just come back home, and geez, I was so, like, tense about showing my face at that wedding. But I went, and it was in South Goa, and the entire resort was booked out by friends, by family and friends of our classmate, and who, Rahul, I'll say his name with pride because he's been a pillar of strength to me, and he's an example to me and a role model as well. Rahul Shetty, if you are listening to this, here's to you, mate. I know he'll bear responsibility, but he is one of the finest human beings I know. And that's why I went to his wedding, because he's one of our closest friends. So at that wedding, despite all the alcohol, there was so much alcohol and booze, it was almost mind-boggling. It was like a party thrown just for me. And my room happened to be right above the place, above the kitchen where all the booze for the wedding was stocked. So imagine the cruel irony. And when I reached there, there were only 2, 3 of our other classmates around, but a large majority of Rahul's friends included his friends from football and his sporting group friends. And these guys, they looked fit, they looked strong, they were well married, well settled, had a good job in life, had a smile on their face. And the funny thing was that even without me knowing them, they took me in as one of their own, just like that. And I saw in that a generosity of spirit that I've rarely encountered before. And what's more, something that surprised me even more was that when they saw that I would not drink, even when offered one, and they asked me why, and I told them I'm an alcoholic, I'm not drinking, they expressed a great admiration for it. And I was like, wow, this is the first time, anyone's ever told me that, because people had not been so supportive, and that without even knowing me. And when I saw them, I asked one of them this question specifically, dude, do you guys drink like this every Saturday night? And he's like, no, man, are you crazy? We don't drink. We drink like this once in maybe 6 months or at a wedding like this, because we want to play sport on Sunday morning. We don't want to wake up with a hangover. And that struck it. On the night of Rahul's wedding, after the wedding thing, when the music was being played, as I stood on the beach in South Goa, I had a moment of clarity, a satori, if you will, which told me that is what I want. I know I can build it, and I will build it, and I don't need anything, any supportive substance or anything else to do it, and it's all possible. When I came back to Bangalore, I started getting into fitness, and one thing led to another. My self-confidence grew, and my life took on a whole different path from there. So that was one thing that I used, fitness. When I got into fitness and started seeing results, mind you, getting into fitness it's not an easy thing after being an alcoholic for 10 years. Even it was a really hard journey, but I just told myself, I just have to be better than what I did yesterday. If I did 2 dumbbell curls yesterday, I'll do 3 today, and that's enough. And I'm proud to say that today I'm pretty fit. I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I swim. I play golf, anything, happy to do things. I just won't touch alcohol. And I haven't touched alcohol since November 2nd of 2017, touchwood, for the record. The only exception I did make was that after 3 years, my friend's mom insisted on sending me Christmas cake, which had rum in it, this Christmas. So I accepted it. But apart from that, I haven't touched alcohol in any form, not even in a tiramisu, which I thought I would want. So there you have it. And the main thing, the other main thing that I have to say is that it took me the 3 years to face all the challenges that I have, and I'm still facing challenges as we speak. You know them very well, and learning from them and growing from them, and learning not to succumb to something external or some support like a crutch like alcohol. Because all I knew before, my instinctive response would be to turn to alcohol to solve my problems, or to turn to a substance to solve my problems, as the case might be. But it took me a whole 3 years, at least. That was a time limit I imposed on myself, to stay completely away. For the first 1.5 years, for my father's sake of mine, peace of mind, I allowed him to administer antabuse to me. Which was the thing that had fractured our relationship from the very start, because I never wanted to take it, and he forced it down my throat. This time when I came back, I said, let him do it. You've led yourself into this trap. As long as it doesn't affect anything else you do, just keep it one less thing to worry about, mate. And so I let him do it. I swallowed the bitter pill, as it were. And after 1.5 years, I was given the chance to go off it onto another drug, which might let me drink. But I chose not to. And I chose to go on it for another 1.5 years, just to show myself that I didn't, I had no, alcohol didn't have power over me, and neither did any silly little pill, and neither did my father's wishes. And so as time grew on, I didn't have to do anything. The way I was conducting myself, people began to see it. I was assuming responsibility for things, making my own money, even if it wasn't too great to start with. It became decent later on. And I did so. I insisted on doing so without, my father's a big lawyer. I could have taken over his practice. I chose not to, only for the reason that I wanted to prove to myself and to the world that here's Dan's a man who's gone through hell and back, and he's now, he can be proud of himself, independent of anybody else. No one can take pride or say that we sent you to AA, we sent you to this place, we sent you and we cured you. No, it was me, my doctors, and certain pillars of support like yourself, Rahul, some of my other friends who always stood by me. And like I said, the 3 years time, it gave me so many difficult situations that caught me off guard, but it taught me how to deal with it. And that's the most important lesson.
Brilliant. You speak so well, Akshay. I suppose all your, practice with being a professor And, helping so many people is definitely helping you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah. Flow is fantastic. That's why I don't even have a question for you in between. But I have one or two questions, Akshay. Uh,
Yeah,
in your mind, this dichotomy of, superstar,
yeah,
brilliant guy in the mind, always been number one. And you made it to Berkeley, you've got super job offers, some of them you didn't even consider, but you still chose teaching.
yeah.
It's just the goodness of your heart. My direct question to you is, do these two personalities almost of yours, one is superstar and the other is, let me have the damn drink or whatever it is, right? Do they fight anytime? I'm sure they still come up and they still have a sparring match. What do you do then?
Well, I'll tell. The reason is very easy. The reason is very simple to articulate here. In fact, I've always, like I said before, I'm an extremely ambitious person. As modest as I may look, I don't be fooled by the short crop hair and the talky glasses. Yeah, I'm a very, very ambitious guy, and I can be very, very lacerating with my tongue at times if I choose to. But I learned, first of all, I learned humility along the process. And as I began working with humanitarian organizations more, it brought out a side in me I had never seen before, which made money evaporate. And when I first walked into a humanitarian home, that was the first time I felt absolved of all my sins. I used to carry a huge oppressive burden on my back. But then when I walked into a humanitarian home and saw the suffering around me, and I teach humanitarian law, which is I studied Iraq, I studied Iraq, I studied Afghanistan, I studied the ISIS. One of our classmates was killed in the ISIS after having joined it. This is what I teach next at an endless genocide. So it's kind of unique how my life and my life's work is revolved around suffering. But I've always wanted to be a superstar, and I realized that I was always a superstar only when I didn't drink. The drink was the one that made, even if not now, 6 months down the line, it was the one that caused me to fall from my superstardom into Dante's seventh circle of hell. And a point is a practical point insofar as addictions is concerned, is that after I'd faced enough of the darkness to myself, admitted my responsibilities and started, accepting, because the worst thing people can do to you as an addict, I'll tell you, and this will resonate with all addicts. People will come and hold up some piddly little photo. You did this 5 years ago. You did this. This used to be done to me all the time. So then after a point, I stopped, and after a point, I took responsibility. I said, yeah, I did this. I'll tell you something else, and I'll tell you in 17 different ways also. You want to have a laugh, sit down. I'll tell you as a stand-up comic also. Because I taken on ownership of this. I wasn't asking God for forgiveness. I wasn't putting it on anyone else. And once I took that on, people saw that I actually meant it. And I decided that I would always live by the principles and my moral convictions that I believed in, which are integrity, honesty, and moral uprightness, no matter what they cost me. And they've cost me a lot. People have called me an idiot for not taking up a lucrative law practice or this, but I knew that I was always meant to be a superstar, and that alcohol had just made me drop. And also my sobriety was strengthened after I started taking pride in it. Yeah. That came about after about 2 years, when I was long enough into it. And remarkably enough, I don't use social media anymore, but finally I just put up some random Facebook post of when I was 700 plus days sober, and making a joke out of it. And I suddenly received this huge outpouring of support, which I never expected. And I was floored. And then I started to take real pride in that, the fact that, dude, people actually mean what they say. It actually must mean. My friends tell me that they can't go a week or 2 weeks without a drink, and their minds are shocked by the fact that a guy who was in such a condition, such as myself, because most of my friends know that to give you a real life experience, when I was in Australia, I was down on my luck so badly, I had to borrow money from a hobo. $5 was what he had to either have a beer or buy heroin. And I borrowed that. He gave that to me out of pity to eat breakfast. I was picking up cigarettes from the sidewalk to smoke. And all the while, I was a scholar meant to be a PhD student on international humanitarian law. And my writing so far had been selected to be supervised by the person who wrote the book on international law himself. The authority, his daughter, wanted to supervise my thesis, and I gave it all away. And to accept all that became a very big thing for me later on, but it took time, it went. But after I started feeling proud of myself for being sober, I never wanted to let it go. Not a chance. Because, and soon enough, with time, I stopped thinking of always this fight against sobriety because I started focusing my energy. It took some time, but I started focusing my energy on positive things. I said, if I keep focusing on these negative things of why I hate being sober, it'll never work. Let me focus on being the best human being I can be every day. And what makes me feel good? Does that mean helping others in the humanitarian home, making a sacrifice? For me, that was what brought me most joy. Whenever I could feel that I had contributed to someone's lives during the lockdown, I was fortunate enough to have had enough money to have supplied generously to people, and it has paid me back manyfold, not just in terms of personal relationships, but also in the love that it has created and the bonds of friendship it has renewed with me and those folks around me. Because I don't like to walk with my head held high, because I know what it's like to be down on the ground and to be kicked. And I never want to see anybody else go through that if I can prevent it. I've been hungry. They say that to know suffering, you have to be able to appreciate suffering, you have to empathize with it. And I have been through suffering. I've felt hungry. I've gone hungry nights, and I've suffered. I've had no room to sleep, no shelter over my head for nights. And I would never want another person to go there, to be in that position again, if I could prevent it. And I refused to put myself in that position if I could possibly prevent it, unless by circumstances beyond my control. An earthquake took my house, not by my own doing. And ultimately, I made a decision that my ultimate aim in life would be to leave this world a slightly better place for me having lived in it. And by that, even by 1,000th of what Muhammad Ali or Che Guevara or the people who have influenced me did, which is why I have so many tattoos. As you can see, they're all meant to commemorate things. And one of the ones you can see here, I don't know if you can see it, but
yeah, I can see part of it. Yeah.
This one, there's a line here that says "Memento homo, memento mori."
Yeah, you can see that.
So that is from the Temple of Apollo, at the Oracle of Temple of Apollo to the Oracle of Delphi, and it's also a maxim by Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who says, remember that you're human and remember death. Because there's an old tradition in the Roman emperors, while they would bring their chariots to town and the revels would begin, they had an auriga. An auriga is a person holding the wreath behind the emperor's head as he entered victorious into the gates. And he would place the wreath on his head and say, "Memento homo, memento hori," because at the end of the day, from dust you came, and from dust you shall turn. And that has always helped me stay humble. Even when I've felt great about myself, I've said, remember, next week in 7 days, everything can go. Tomorrow, everything can go. And the best way, and I've watched a lot of YouTube talks and stuff like this, and one constant refrain I find through all people I admire is that service to others is the cornerstone upon which you must build your empire. From Arnold Schwarzenegger to Muhammad Ali to Che Guevara, whatever they did, ultimately a huge amount of their life was dedicated to serving their common thing. And that was what made me take up teaching. I was inspired. I was lucky enough to have a very, very great mentor. I still do, Professor Bering in UC Berkeley. And he was the one who taught me how to be a teacher, because not to force authority down my students' throat, but to rather extend a hand of help to them and to use my knowledge and broaden their horizons. And that is what I think, separated me from a lot of the other teachers, which is why even till to this day, I am very proud to say that I have a lot of books on my shelf, which have been inscribed to be my students on my birthday. I still get gifts, I still get cards, even though I haven't been a teacher for like many years. And I still wish all my students well. I have a great rapport with them, and only because I imparted them an education that went far beyond the classroom. and I made myself accessible to them, because I know that sometimes you always need some support and you need someone who's free of judgment. And I didn't have that, and I'd like to be there for everyone else. And teaching in itself is a very, very, very rewarding profession, because it's intellectually challenging, it's physically challenging, and ultimately it might not pay a lot, at least not in India, but the students will never forget you. You can make a lawyer can win one case today. I have won cases in which 50 crores have been involved, but I have never been able to emulate the feeling I've got out from walking out of a class that has stood standing on its feet, applauding me when I walked out after a lecture. So, and then students coming in, telling me, thank you, sir, thank you, sir, thank you for being a part of our lives. I mean, what, compare that.
What's better than that? Absolutely.
So yeah.
Akshay, I still have one or two more questions, and then I want to go into a rapid fire round with you, if you're okay.
Sure. Oh, yes. A lawyer after all.
So, Akshay, my other question to you is, you said people try to pull you down, and it doesn't matter who it is. It could be a close family member, it could be a friend, it could be somebody you meet on the street. What is your hack for, avoiding that drop in ego, or, the anger that comes out of it? What are the reactions? How do you keep your self-control?
I have been able to achieve this only recently, and I'm still working on myself, so I can't say I've perfected it. No one can say if they have, but it's, for me, it's especially when some random person says anything, I don't give a damn. But when some remark of this is made by, say, your own mother or your own father or your brother, and the time that has gone by is long gone, and they're pulling you down for a sin you committed 20 years ago, or in my years, 3 years or 4 years ago, I just grew secure in myself to understand that this is all they've got. Yeah. I was like, they must have nothing else. Otherwise, now there's a life of guilt, and they have done irresponsible things, not me. Like, let them say, 3 years ago you said that 3 years ago, and you're saying it still now. So my answer in the style of a lawyer is that the limitation period on all your jokes has expired.
Wow.
Please go and get a new repertoire to them, because I am tired of hearing something the same old story again and again. And whatever, if you come up with some new material, please bring it forth, because I'll have a laugh with you.
That's fine. That's absolutely great.
It just took a little bit of security on my part. It's not easy to do. It's still pretty tough at times, but because there are still things that can come up from the past and that can haunt you without you knowing.
I think it's also triggers, right, Akshay? Because if you allow something that is quoted about the past to trigger the present into going back into the past.
Absolutely. And that's what. That's where the trick is. Yes. And for addicts, especially for all us addicts, I can say that everyone who is an addict will understand, even if the rest of the world doesn't, that it is not when you go and have a drink or you succumb to going back to get a fix, it's not a bloody rational response to anything. Let's be very frank about it. Your mind is not telling you in some thinking like Pascal, or thinking like Isaac Newton, logically putting together things or putting together an addiction plan. No, it's an irrational response. It's been classified by the DSM as a disease. Addiction is a disease. And so therefore, first of all, I think everybody would need a person to confide in or to talk to. I think that's very important, because when you have a trigger, it's often a very, very heavy burden to bear. And for me, for the most part, I've kept it to myself. But I found that for me, in doing so and not succumbing, it has somehow made me a stronger person, because I was too proud to confide, first of all, until later on. And then after that, now when I see a trigger coming, I identified some triggers. I just say that if I succumb to this trigger, it would be giving in to a lesser impulse in a lesser me. If I am 100% now, to give in to that trigger would be me being 50% of who I am now. So I don't want to ever be 50%. So, or to giving something else the power over me. I don't want to let anyone else unseat me from where I am in my life, whether it's through their words, through their actions, because we cannot control them. You could face the rest of your life being confronted and insulted, but it ultimately depends on your security and your choice as to do you want to let that trigger come and take hold of your life, catch you by the scruff of your neck and the seat of your pant and fling you back into that depressive black hole where all credibility is lost and you'll be clawing back out and you're desperate for help from the very same people who put you there. Once you make that break from jail, in your mind and realize that there are bigger things to life than addiction. And a lot of addicts I have met, and they have trouble first admitting that that they're addicts, and this is a crisis with most of them. They're in denial. And secondly, a lot of times I have succumbed to this is like after a short period of sobriety, I got complacent and said, yeah. Then I understood the last time I gave it up and for good, I understood that there will be a never again, nunca más, never again in Spanish. And that is something each individual has to take. And I would encourage everyone, to see themselves for the beauty that is within, not to see themselves as others see them, but to look at themselves and look at the beauty that radiates from within each of them. I mean, there's a poem by Hafez which says you must see yourself as a bright shining star, because if you don't, find hope wherever you can, find a good supportive group. I'm sure people have, and even if you have no one, remember that you are a shining star and you deserve better for yourself.
Yeah.
You deserve everything you get, and whether it's good or bad, everybody ultimately gets what they deserve. And so you must never blame anyone. Another important thing I wish to say is that something you taught me is, I didn't understand this till very recently, is not to cast blame, but to take responsibility. And that's very cliche. Everyone will say, dude, don't put blame, take responsibility. Nobody has bothered to inquire what this means. I read the Stoic philosophies of Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus and Zeno, and then I understood. Their premise is based on the thing that you have no control over others' actions. You can choose your actions.
Yes.
So you choose them. So therefore, if you cast blame, say suppose Mr. Faria has insulted me in some way that I find very bad today, and I start drinking because of it, and I go into the spiral, or perhaps something else goes awry in my life, or I lose my girlfriend or something. For the rest of my life, I can sit harboring that resentment against Mr. Faria for destroying me by saying this thing to me. But will that change anything? No. I can take responsibility for the fact that I put myself in a position for him to say that. And when I realized that, I realized I will never, ever again give anyone the satisfaction of drawing a response that I want from.
Yeah.
I have control over myself and I'm accountable to myself. And it is very important, at least for me, to be consistent in what I do, as well as to be honest to myself within. I don't say things that I don't mean, and I don't do things that I don't. I live by what I say, and I'd like to think that I walk my talk. I have made it a very, very strong factor of my life that I will conduct myself in an honorable and respectable and decent way, despite whatever provocation. So if there's any fault to be had, it shall always lie with other people, never with me, because addiction and anger have cost me a lot, and they've caused me to cause others a lot of pain, and have effectively put me in the place where I've been able to be flogged and hit and steamrolled by life and circumstance.
Yeah, and I think, the aspect of us hitting at somebody because we feel we can't control them. So we hit out at them. And actually, that's a reptilian brain response.
Absolutely.
Not your best brain response.
Exactly.
And, Akshay, I'm going to call this out. If we are dealing with people who are having some challenge with some addiction or whatever it is, some habit, I think one of the best things is to build their self-esteem, right? Rather than pull it down.
Absolutely. Which is why I always say that try and surround yourself with people who are supportive of your growth. Like I found them in the places that I least expected, and those I most expected left me for dead. And so it can come from anywhere, but I'm sure most places I found, most people I've interacted with already have a very strong built-in support system.
Brilliant. So even you're going to the gym, going to the golf course, you're meeting people there who are moving ahead.
Yes, exactly.
People who are stuck in a quagmire.
Yeah, and that would be my best advice. Never never hang around a crowd that is negative, that is, detrimental to your own growth. You must always be seeking to aspire, always never be like I will bring being the kind of individual that I am. I always want to keep improving myself. Initially I used to think, oh, I have to show off these many medals. Now, no, I do things and people recognize them. And today, believe it or not, I have people telling me, I wish my children could spend more time with you. Wow. to learn values from you. Uh, the very same people whose parents, used to go and sneer at my alcohol addiction not 3-4 years ago, today their kids want to spend time with me and for the contacts I have. Because ultimately, the last 3 years, and I am so proud to say this today, Mr. Faria, more proud than I've ever been, that I have been able to navigate in the last 1 week or so, some very, very, very trying circumstances, including the death of my dog, which was under very dubious circumstances. And I've been able to hold myself together because I know that I'm a bigger man than all of it, that I have become a bigger man than all of it. And I have become this bigger person through my own effort. And that is something to be proud of. And that I will just keep growing. And that's why I play golf. And, when you take up fitness is where it all started for me. That's where the self-improvement or the self-esteem grew. Seeing myself, and people started saying, "Do you yourself?" I keep telling people that was a big clinker for me. When I came to your house one day and you commented, "Look at the size of your biceps," I was so proud. And I was like, dude, Mr. Faria is complimenting me on the size of my biceps. I was like, now that's a compliment I'll take. And it gave me, when people encourage you, it gives you impetus to do better. I mean, yes. As long as that encouragement is honest, as long as it's honest. And I feel personally, the worst thing that you can do to a human being is to make a mockery of what they love, and I feel the worst thing to do to a person is to be cruel to them in times of need, which is something that happens all too often these days. And people tend to take advantage of others, in such situations. That cannot be avoided, but we must always take heart in ourselves, and we must always, everyone who's hearing this should encourage those who are suffering, and those who are suffering must seek out encouragement or hold strong in their own and be secure enough in themselves to say that, yes, this too shall bloody pass. It bloody well will. And one of my favorite lines in this comes, from the movie The Legend of Bagavants, and where Matt Damon tells this young kid, tells him, my dad today is in the depression. He's sweeping or something, and he's lost his job, everything, but everybody else has got a car. And this guy tells this young kid, he says, son, that's because all of these guys went to court and declared bankruptcy and kept their fortune. Your father paid back every debtor he had, and till he was bankrupt, till he didn't have a penny left, and then he stood at his door and faced adversity, looked it in the eye and beat it back with a broom handle until it was a whimpering little dog. And look adversity in the eye and beat it back with a broom handle. Because why do we have to be like, why should we think we don't have enough balls or courage to do so? Pardon my expression. We gotta, like I keep telling, balls of a rodeo bull. Why should we believe any less of ourselves? Are we not entitled to believe that we are the best versions of ourselves possible?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And are we not entitled to aspire to greatness? Are we not? Like, if such despicable persons can aspire to greatness, why not us? And we must never ever waste time thinking about others, because they are certainly not, the negative people are not wasting time thinking about how mentally upset we are.
Yeah,
it's only us. So hang out to the positive crowd, do positive things, build your self-esteem, and don't keep focusing on the problem. Don't make sobriety your only goal. There's a huge, much bigger, broader world out there. Go have a look at it. I found happiness in ways that I couldn't have contemplated. My dog, as you know, is a big pillar of support to me. My dog, I have a huge Rottweiler who's sitting right by here. His name is Thor. And I found, I find a lot of strength in the music I listen to, and the movies and the books I watch and read, and the people I meet. And now I choose my friends carefully, and that has proved a wise choice. And whether I'm with someone or without someone, I now know that I have enough in myself to be proud of, and I'll never let that go.
Fabulous. Are you ready for some quick questions?
Absolutely.
QQ. Okay, the first thing. How important is forgiveness?
In my book, not it depends on the individual.
It depends on the individual. Okay. You talked about praise and how it's lifted you. Can you say one more thing about it?
Honest praise.
Honest praise is very important. So it's not
Yes.
flattery. It
Yeah.
should be differentiated from flattery. Okay.
Yes.
How important are habits in life?
Habits, at least for me, are very important, at least insofar as they help us to structure our lives, to make us get going, at least in the beginning, because a lot of us suffer from the fact that even if we make goals, we forget them the next day. So habits are extremely important, and the right habits, if cultivated, and we all know now about neuroelasticity, the brain can be changed. We all thought it was a stationary thing, but now science has proven that neuroelasticity can alter, and our brains can expand and grow new cells, in fact, through mindfulness and other techniques. So habits, I think, are crucial to every individual who wants to move forward in any walk of life.
Identifying pitfalls and traps.
Pardon?
I'm just giving the word pitfalls or traps.
Well, to put it in the words of Alexander, you see the Gordian knot, you don't try and unknot, just cut through it. You take a long jump over the pitfalls, tell it, show it the finger and tell it to jump. Because you know you're bigger than a pitfall or a trap. You're not some silly little jungle creature. Give yourself enough credit. Come on.
What next for Akshay?
Oh, well, who knows? Hopefully life has been kind to me so far this year. I've learned just to be equanimous, and hopefully want to reach out to more people and give as much as I can. I have a course I'm teaching coming up soon. I really hope I get to interact and give something of myself, because it is finally, after 3.5 years, when I thought it was all over, I was given a chance. Like here's another example. I thought it was all over after 3.5 years. I virtually blacklisted myself, but then I was thrown a lifeboat by most prestigious university in this country, and I get to teach at my alma mater again, which for me is no small issue. And just work hard enough. You might not see the rewards of your work today, you will soon, and that's what I keep working on. I just keep trying to do the right thing, whether somebody's looking or not. No, because at the end of the day, I'm looking, and I know that life, I've gone through enough karmic cycles, as this will show you, to show that life is always, it moves in a cycle. Wow. All of life is a cycle.
So why do you need the tattoos to remind you?
My tattoos are actually more of a catalog of my experiences. They're meant to commemorate things.
Like archive.
This is the first day I escaped from a rehab, and I got this. On the 5th anniversary after that, I got, when I escaped from the rehab, I got this. And on the 5th anniversary after, I got this. This was my first tattoo ever, which says Invictus, which is what Mr. Mandela used to read to himself in Robben Island. And I take great heart in poetry and things that because they inspire me, and I wake up every morning just telling myself I want to be the best version of myself that I can today, because that's it.
That's it. And I love your pride, and I love the way you walk. And so, sometimes when you just call me to give me some good news, there's so much of power in you. It's unbelievable.
Well, I owe a lot of, like I said, I've achieved anything today, it's only because I've had the shoulders of giants such as yourself and my other mentors and my super circle of friends who encouraged me in all the right ways to stand out. So as much credit as I can take, I owe even more gratitude to you guys.
2 remaining goals in life.
Well, buy a farm in Argentina and raise horses. That's the only remaining goal. Yeah. And own a restaurant. Yeah, own a restaurant or barbecue. Make my barbecuing. No, these are actual dreams. Come on. I love Argentina. Like they have great golf courses. I love horses. I want to have a farm. And of course, yes, this is not a dream. This is going to happen. A Nobel Prize.
Wow.
In literature.
Wow. Now we're talking, Akshay. Now we're talking. I'm going to talk to you about that a little later. Where does marriage fit in?
That personally for me, it doesn't. I've decided by this point in my life, my calling is bigger than pairing or to any particular individual. I have great friends. I love them all. And I have no bitterness with any of my ex-girlfriends either. And so I believe that my life does not involve marriage. Instead of helping instead of being responsible for one person or one family, I would like to give myself to the rest of humanity as much as I can.
Super, when that might change.
Pardon?
And that might change.
Anything can change, who's to say? I mean,
yeah. As long as you're open to the fact that it could change if someone.
Yeah, I mean, life is too unpredictable for any of us to say that nothing will change. Anything can change. But as of now, I've most of my friends are married. Most of them have kids also. But one of my friends who I was introduced to recently, she's like, she thought like we were on some date or something, and on like several months ago. She's like, Akshay, I can't take you home to my parents. I hope you understand. We're from a very conventional Marwadi family, and with all your tattoos. I said, listen, what makes you think, what gives you the impression that I want to be married? And she said, but you're the most fascinating guy I know.
Oh, wow. This is a public confession, Akshay.
No, many people say that because they think that the way I look in dress often doesn't, they never expect what I say. They never expect me to say what I say, or that I read what I do, or to, be as nice. Many people expect me to be a mean guy, basically. And a lot of people know me as that because I was during some worse times, but I've redeemed myself through my actions now. And I'm happy.
You have more than done that, Akshay, and we are very proud of you. Let me tell you.
Thank you very much.
Most happy. And I hope I can, refer your name as a role model, people who want to talk through.
Absolutely. People can send me an email, give my phone number. Like, I'm always like out to help folks. So anyone who needs it, WhatsApp message first will do better, because I'm often on the moon, won't pick up a call. But anyone who wants to talk to me, I love to talk. So ask them to be prepared, and that my dedication to service and helping individuals is everlasting. I'm actually writing a book on the NDPS Act and how we can improve it in the country, because it's causing a lot of grief. I'm very ashamed to say that, I was unable to save the life of a 21-year-old boy who was, the case is still pending, so I'm not liberty to say anymore. But as far as my efforts were concerned, I took it to the Supreme Court and I failed. And I felt very bad for myself that, I couldn't at least do enough for him. But that too taught me a lesson. Sometimes best is only what you can do, your best.
And timing is everything. So, sooner or later, the time will come.
Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I'm okay with everything.
It's fine. You did your best job.
Yes.
So thanks very much, Akshay. I'm going to close on this note. And I want to first thank you for taking this interview. You've been very candid, very forthright. And I'm sure tons of people are going to, benefit from.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. And I owe a great debt of gratitude to you for having me on this, and for allowing me to, for giving me a platform to express my views, something which I hold very dear to my heart and which I wasn't able to do. So a flurry of good luck continues through 2021. Thank you very much, Mr. Faria. Very grateful. My heart goes out to you.
Thanks. Look forward to meeting you again soon. And I wish you all the best, Akshay. You're one of the most brilliant guys that, I have met as a young person. Very brilliant. And I'm sure some of that brilliance has yet to shine through, but you've already proved in bits and pieces that you got more than what it takes. So
thank you very much.